The title of our notes today are 5-4 special parallelograms and 1 non-parallelogram. For these notes, you're going to need one marker, and we're going to be really specific about how you set up your notes. You're going to draw a line right here about, I'd say, 1.5 inches over from this side right here. Reserve 8 lines for the first row, 9 lines, then 8 lines, and then whatever's left over will be at the very bottom. Now, if you're watching this video, then you were assigned the kite. And the kite notes are going to go on the very bottom row. So make sure that today when you're writing, it's only going on the bottom section. So the first thing you're going to need to do is draw this diagram. This is a kite. Write your name, not your name, the name of the kite. And then using your marker, I want you to write in really big letters right here in this column, this section. I want you to write that this is not a parallelogram. Now, just to make sure you remember that, I want you to grab your marker and just highlight the whole box that this is not a parallelogram. Now let's look at what makes a kite similar to a parallelogram. And really there's only one thing that they have in common, and that's that it has 4 sides. That's it. Everything else that we're going to write down that are characteristics of a kite, we're going to do that using your marker. So make sure you're grabbing your marker right now. So one of the qualities of a kite is that it has 2 pairs of adjacent, and that means they're right next to each other, adjacent congruent sides. So that's one of the criteria. On the next line, and this one's kind of long-winded, but it says the angles where the 2 pairs, pairs of congruent sides meet, those angles are congruent. Next, the diagonals are actually perpendicular. And last but not least, and this is another long-winded one, the diagonal through the congruent angles is bisected. All right, now what I'm going to show you right now is, let me see if I can make this a little bit nicer. Okay, I'm going to move this over. All right, let's go ahead and kind of make sense of this. So it says 2 pairs of adjacent congruent sides. The angles where the 2 pairs of congruent sides meet are congruent, so those angles are congruent. The diagonals are perpendicular, and the diagonals through the congruent angles is bisected. Okay, so let's go ahead and draw that. So 2 pairs of adjacent congruent sides, that's shown here. The top 2 and the bottom 2, those are adjacent right next to each other. That's shown. The angles where the 2 pairs of congruent sides meet are congruent. So what they're saying is where this congruent side meets the other congruent side, this angle is congruent to this angle. So that's what that third criteria is saying. The diagonals are perpendicular. They're not drawn in, so let's go ahead and draw those. That's connecting DB and AC. Those are perpendicular all the way around. And last but not least, and this one's a little tricky, the diagonal through the congruent angles, it's bisected. So they're talking about this diagonal, it's bisected. So this one right here, I'll have to do 3 hash marks, is cut in half. Obviously, this diagonal is not cut in half. And those are the criteria of what makes a kite a kite. And again, please take back to your group, once they highlight this box, make sure you remind them a kite is not a parallelogram.